Teen depression is a serious disease affecting the minds of young people all across the world. It is caused by an imbalance of serotonin levels in your brain. Trends seen in the spread of depression show that suicide rates are on the rise 300% since the 1970s. Teen depression should not be taken lightly. In many high schools across the nation, teens are affected by depression, but often the symptoms are not immediately clear. We talked with a student at the School Without Walls in Washington, D.C. who had experience with depression.
I was affected by depression when I was in like the 10th to the 11th grade. It was mainly, in my opinion, I think it was mainly due to the stress of school, like outside relationships. I just felt like the weight of the world was being put on my shoulders. I was hospitalized. I had a panic attack, anxiety attack, and I went to the hospital. But they didn't know what was wrong. Like, they just tested me for the typical like dehydration and stuff like that. But then when I kept going back to the hospital, there was like week after week I was in the hospital, or I was like having breakdowns and stuff like that. I was just kept going to the hospital, and then that's when they started like asking me little questions and stuff like that. I guess would lead to if I was depressed or not. And then they started doing like running all these tests on me, and then they saw like my hair was all out, like my hair had like fell out in patches, and like they just diagnosed me with anxiety disorder.
Also, we talked with a high school guidance counselor from the School Without Walls.
My name is Zareen Kapadia, and I'm a school counselor here at School Without Walls. A lot of things that are going on in the news about bullying, and that's a huge thing. And bullying is then leading to teen depression, which is then leading to teen suicide, and that's something that's a big issue in schools and around the country right now. I think it's something that people need to be aware of. A lot of times people discount teenagers' attitudes and behaviors as just being a teenager, and I think you have to be really careful about that. There is typical, I guess, teenage behavior, but I feel like people see warning signs, but they tend to ignore it, or they tend to discount it too much and not pay enough attention to it, and that's kind of how these things happen. Well, being a teenager is hard. I know, especially at this school, this is a very academically rigorous school. There's a lot of pressure on kids here to do well, to succeed, not just from from teachers, from peers, from parents. Kids take it too much to heart, and they put too much on themselves. I have to get all A's, say for example. Well, then if you have to get all A's, well, I have to study all the time, and I have to go see my teachers all the time, and I have to do like 5 hours of homework a night, and I have to do this project, and I have to get an A. So I think one of the major factors of teen depression is pressure, and it's not just academic pressure, but social pressure. Sometimes it's family life. Something is going on within the family that affects you. Like, as a counselor, I look at the whole, because if something's going on at home, it's going to come out in school. You know, I notice you're tired a lot lately, or I notice that your grades are kind of slipping in this one class, or I notice that you're coming in late every morning. You know, like, usually there's a change in behavior. Sometimes it's a very dramatic, you know, like coming in late all the time, or grades going from like A's and B's to D's and F's. And those are a little bit easier to pick up on. And once we can identify what's going on, we talk about ways that we can fix it, or ways that we can cope with it. One of the common misconceptions is asking a student if they're suicidal or if they've thought about suicide will cause that child to actually commit suicide or put that thought in their head, and that's absolutely not true. They've already thought about it before. You're not putting any ideas into their head. If you do suspect somebody of being suicidal, there are certain things that you ask. First, you ask them if they've thought about suicide. Then you ask them how often they've thought about it. I see the frequency. Then you talk about, have they thought of a plan? What is the plan? And once you go through all those steps, you kind of have a gauge as to if this is like, if it's something serious or if it's kind of just like a fleeting thought. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. I think there's a lot of emphasis on you have to be okay. So I think a lot of times it's people don't know how to deal with it, but I also think it's sometimes they don't know how to ask for help, or they don't want to be a burden to other people. I think that's a big one. They're like, well, everyone else has their own issues, you know, like everyone else is worried about school, this person's parents are getting divorced, this person's mom's in the hospital, whatever the issues, or even just, I know she's really stressed about the test tomorrow, so I'm not going to bother her, but I'm really upset and I need someone to talk to, but everyone's busy, so I just won't talk to anybody. And I think that happens for so long that they just bring everything in on themselves, and they either don't know how to ask for help, or they kind of just give up. And they think that suicide is the only answer.
This is Phillip Gentle signing out.